Hello and welcome to this video. We all love a list. I love a list. And you love a list. We all love a list. And the best lists are the ones which are the biggest, which try and name the best of all time or the worst of all time. They're the videos that do so well on my channel. And I'm going to attempt to do one of these today. Well, you'll say, Andy, you've done the greatest albums, you've done the most influential albums of all time, but here I'm going to go through the 10 albums that I think are near perfect, the 10 nearest to perfection. Now, I can love an album and think it's absolutely fantastic, but it can be flawed. It may have the odd dodgy track on, or it might not hold together, but overall the music's incredible and it blows you away and it gives you great emotional feeling. But there's other albums, when you put them on, that the band never seems to put a foot wrong. And it's those albums that we're going to be looking at today. As a companion to this, I am going to be doing the 10 great albums or greatest albums that have dodgy tracks on them. And I'm talking really dodgy. And that video will probably be far more entertaining. But, you know, in terms of discussing great music, this is the video. So, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to go through what I think are the 10 most nearest to perfection albums ranked. Brilliant. Before we get going, I'm going to have a sip of my coffee. Now, normally I would have a Greg's coffee, but I have actually, as you may have seen in a few videos back, I've been given a coffee machine, which is over there. I won't show you it because I've set up all the lighting, and that's what I've got here. So this is my mug. This is the mug that I've bought for my studio. And I'm going to be drinking my own coffee. No, I didn't make the coffee. Well, I made the coffee when the machine made the coffee. Anyway, it's not Greg's coffee. I've given up on them. Oh, my God, that's unbelievable. That's what you call a proper cup of coffee. Now, you may think I'm so full of beans, I don't need the extra coffee beans. But it's actually Sunday morning here, and I've got up early. I was going through this list, and I got so inspired, I thought I'm going to run down to the studio Sunday morning, and let's just get on and do it. But I need a bit of pepping up. I know I'm drawing this out. You should not do this on YouTube. I should be hitting straight in. You're all waiting there with bated breath. You want to know my list, and I'm just stalling for time, aren't I? Stalling for time. Shall we get on with it? Yes. Straight in. You know how it works. Right. Before I start, some people have been coming on here and moaning that my lists have got too much prog and too much jazz and too much fusion. My answer to this is, duh. Of course. This is what this channel is. I'll talk about all music, right? But all the other music isn't quite as good as prog, jazz and jazz fusion. That's what you come here for. This is what happens when you have popular videos. You get these normal people turning up with their normal likes, you know, people who like Bruce Springsteen or Joy Division, and then they come on and, oh, let's have a look at this. And then, you know, they're faced with some obscure solo album by Lenny White in the greatest albums, at number 2 of the greatest albums of 1975. And they're all sat there going, what the hell's going on? The Ramones, didn't they bring it out back then? No, they didn't. It was 1976. They were in early. I've got to give them that. I'm going to have to reassess the Ramones a little bit. You see, I changed my opinion. You can't change your opinion, Andy. You can't do it. It's not right. You should have an opinion and never change it. Right, shall we get going? So, this contains prog albums, jazz albums, rock albums, and fusion albums, of course. Shall we just kick off? And some of them you're going to know what I think are perfect. So when if I get to an album I haven't talked about, sorry. Oh, bugger. If I get to an album I have talked about, then I will get through that one quickly. You're okay with that? All right. What else do I need to say before we kick off with all the complaints that I get? I get a lot of complaints for a YouTuber. I go look at other people's YouTubers and they're just getting glowing comments off their viewers. Whereas I seem to attract, as much as I attract so much love from you lovely people who love me, I also seem to attract a level of hate. Oh yeah, that was the other thing I was going to say. I have been making a lot of mistakes, even worse for me. It's worse for me. It's, that's not, see, that's what, there's an example of it. I use bad English. And I make mistakes. And there's a couple of mistakes I've made which I have been very embarrassed by. One of them was talking about the Rush song Bite or the by Tor and the Snowman. Oh, God. What was the other one? I saw one this morning and I was like, oh my God, he didn't say that, did I? Really bloody obvious mistakes. I think I'm about ready to go now. You ready to go? 5 minutes. 5 minutes preamble. Let's get kicking. Let's get right into the 10 most perfect albums. I was watching a video this morning. This bloke, he got a lip reader in to see what Trump was saying to Obama. And I'm going to watch this. 40 minutes long, this video. And I'm going through all the crap. What's they going to say? Oh, come on. Yeah, no. 40 minutes he goes on for, this bloke. And then when he gets to it, the lip reader says, oh, I couldn't read what they were saying because Obama was to the side and because Trump's got that funny mouth shape and I can't read what he's saying. Oh, can you see the irony of this? The way I've started this video. It's anti-YouTubing I'm doing now. This isn't right. You shouldn't start a video like this. It's a popular video. I should be straight in. You know, the fair weather viewers are here going, what is this bloke going on about? Is this supposed to be funny? This is like anti-YouTubing. Why is he doing this for? I want to see I might have to forward on. I'm going to forward on. Forward on. Go on. See what happens if you forward on. Because I'm going to go straight in. Because at number 10, I have a jazz album. Yes, I do. At number 10, I have got Night Train by Oscar Peterson. Right. Why have I put that on this list? Well, I'll tell you why. Because that album is flawless. Oscar Peterson is one of the great jazz piano virtuosos. I think he gets a little bit maligned because he is seen by the jazz community, which can be a little bit snobby and snotty, as not being cutting edge, like Thelonious Monk. Oscar Peterson is an absolute virtuoso, following in the footsteps of Art Tatum. He's like Art Tatum, but he has taken on the language of bebop and post-bebop music styles. But he's also able to traverse, I believe, that area between innovative, forward-thinking jazz and commercial and popularism. Right? Oscar Peterson plays jazz at the highest level. He considers what's going on around him at that time, and he brings those influences in. This album, Night Train, was recorded in the early 60s, I think around 63 or 64. It's an interesting album because, and this is where you can see him taking on what's going on around him, we are moving towards the era of rock and roll and rock. People like Wes Montgomery and various other artists are going to try and take on, Beatles songs. And you're going to have the horror of Ella Fitzgerald singing a Beatles song, which isn't a horror. It's great if you want to hear her singing that. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And on this album, he's doing the same thing. This is a collection of sort of blues, erring on rhythm and blues. Night Train, the title track, is a rhythm and blues track. But he takes them on in a swinging and groovy style, but still in the intimate style of a piano trio. And he keeps the improvisation short. And within keeping the improvisation short, each tune's around about 3 or 4 minutes. It's much more like listening to a pop album. The tracks come and go. People may know the tunes if they're into rhythm and blues or soul, because there's a lot of that type of stuff on here. He doesn't pander to commerciality, though, and he plays at the highest order. His band at that point, which I think is I don't think there's a drummer on here. It could be Ray Brown and Herb Ellis. I've jumped into this without having a quick glance. It could be Ray Brown and Herb Ellis, but I'm not sure the lineup is. So it's intimate, it's tight, it's recorded in the 1960s, so the quality is very good. It's just a perfect jazz album. And I would say if you're not a jazz fan, but you want to have a proper jazz album, not going and buying some Frank Sinatra albums or whatever, or some vocal albums, Ella Fitzgerald albums. You need those, they're great. But if you want a proper jazz album where they're playing at the highest level, but is not like avant-garde jazz or going on for hours and hours with soloing, which is a succinct but high art album, you cannot go wrong with Night Train. It's an absolute perfect album from start to finish. And it holds your attention and it keeps you there. So that's what I've got at number 10 is Night Train by Oscar Peterson. Right, what have I got at number 9? Well, I know I've got to put some progressive rock albums here, and when you start to think of perfect albums, for a perfect album, I've got to say to myself, I love absolutely every track on this album, and yet I don't feel like I'm getting bored because it's samey. So the artist has to be able to deliver what I expect from that band, but also push the envelope out and do lots of different things to keep my interest, right? When we start looking at progressive rock albums, there's sort of three albums that come to mind where I can't see there's any point on that album where it starts to sort of become a little bit, not 100% hitting it right in the face. So, of the really, truly great progressive rock bands, the first one that came to my mind was King Crimson. Now, King Crimson has gone down in history with their debut album, In the Court of the Crimson King, which often comes up in the greatest prog albums of all time. And I have been complaints for not putting it in my top 10 prog albums. But for me, it's a brilliant album. And 21st Century Schizoid Man and In the Court of the Crimson King are masterpieces. But it's a flawed album. It's not great all the way through. There's meandery bits. There's a sort of bit of 60s pretentiousness going on. It doesn't seem to get into top gear all the time. It sort of languishes about, and I sort of lose interest a little bit with that album. Not criticising it, but for me, that album is not a perfect album. And I can go through all of them like that. Now, when they get to the classic period, you get Larks, Tongues and Aspic. Now, I would say that Larks, Tongues and Aspic could well be my favourite King Crimson album. But is it perfect? Well, I don't think it is, and that's part of the charm of that album. It seems very uneven to me in different places, especially on side 2. And I feel that the track Talking Drum is a good track, but it goes on for a little bit, and it's sort of, what are they doing? And before that, Easy Money is okay. It's good. Book of Saturday. Those are the three tracks that weren't quite in the same league as Larks, Tongues and Aspics 1 and 2. Exiles is incredible, and they were the three tracks. So it's got that slight unevenness to it. But the tracks I don't like quite as much. I do really like them, but there's an unevenness to them. When we get to Starless of the Bible Black, that's a very uneven album. I mean, it's almost deliberately like that. It's an incredible album, but it pulls a lot of sort of live improvisations in. And so you don't necessarily get all the things you would expect from King Crimson, but I would say Great Deceiver for me could well be Crimson's finest moment. I don't know. When we get to Red, however, that album never puts a foot wrong. It's got quite approachable King Crimson tunes. It's got very difficult King Crimson tunes. It has an improvisation on the beginning of side 2, which is equal to anything on Starless of the Bible Black. So you get that. It has an epic on it called Starless, which is absolutely incredible. It's one of the greatest prog epics of all time. And in that one track, it seems to do everything that King Crimson do. So you can just get that one track and you'll know what King Crimson is about. On side 1, we just have some 3 incredible tunes. When King Crimson do ballads, I often like them very much. They have a dark approach into ballads, but Fallen Angel for me is probably their high peak. The track Red is just this grinding, dark post-heavy metal thing. Oh, it's just incredible. And One More Red Nightmare, of course, it just kicks and it's all over the place, and Bill Bruford is off the chart. So for me, Red does not put a foot wrong, really. The only thing I might level at it is that jam that's on side, the beginnings of side 2, which I absolutely love. But I often wonder whether that really fits into the overall darkness and forbiddingness of the album. And this is what I mean by near perfect. So I'll be rating that. The rest of the album's 100% for me. But that's coming in at around about 95, 96. But it's great. So that's what we've got at number 9. One of the great dark albums that happens to be called Red, but it's really about black. And at number 8, see what I've done there? We've got another album that deals with blackness, and this album is absolutely perfect, except for a few little niggles, and we will get through those as well. So at number 8, I've got Back in Black by ACDC. Now here's a case in point, and this is why this list is quite interesting. My favourite album by ACDC is Highway to Hell. It's probably followed up by Power Age. I love the Bon Scott Eva. Now, Highway to Hell, I actually wrote down, I thought that album's bloody perfect. Every single track kicks. And I'll put it on and I listen. And the second track, Love Hungry Man, it just is not very good, is it? I can't believe how bad it is. I can't believe, actually, the album's so good, and it's the second track on the album as well. If they buried it in the midst of the back end of side 2, we might not have noticed. But it's just rubbish. It's got a rubbish tune. It doesn't really do what AC/DC do that well. And worse than that, Cliff Williams on bass, and it's quite impressive in a way, but he's channeling a bit of disco. There's a bit of a disco bass line. It sounds like Chic. But it just doesn't have the magic that AC/DC has when they're magical, which is really hard to put into words. But the rest of Highway to Hell, every single track has it. So can you see what I mean? Highway to Hell's my favourite. I can forgive it, Love Hungry Man. Then you go to Back in Black, and Back in Black is just absolutely perfection. And when I looked at it, I thought, yeah, but it's got that Shake a Leg track, hasn't it? That's probably the weakest. Right, so I put Shake a Leg on, it started up, and the verse is a little bit not in the same league as everything else on that album. Then it hit the chorus, and as the riff kicks in, I was like, this is just brilliant. It needed that setup. I've always thought Back in Black is like, it's almost like a prog album in a way. AC/DC, this fun-loving party band. Bon Scott dies. They're at the point where they're going to take over the world. What do? You find Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson comes in and actually delivers the goods. It's incredible. They've got a new frontman. They should have been the band over and done with. Then they have to deal with Bon Scott's death. And they go from being this party band, to bringing out an album that is just black. Now, you've got to remember now when you buy a CD, you can see the AC/DC writing in white. When this came out, that was embossed. The whole album was just black. And you put this album on and Hell's Bells starts up. And you hear the banging, like the death knell gong going off. And then this slow guitar comes in. And then it's almost like an AC/DC overture, which just builds up. And then Bon Scott comes in stating his claim, right? If Bon Scott was on a highway to hell, we are now in hell. This is Grand Guignol. It's an incredible thing. Now, on this album, you've got sort of these sort of blues jams like, Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. You've got things like just some of the best AC/DC tunes of all time. I mean, every single track on here. And I want to try and get into the nooks and crannies of this album. Back in Black. What? I mean, is this AC/DC's finest moment? I would say, my favourite tune by AC/DC is A Touch Too Much. The reason I like that is because that incredible middle section. But Highway to Hell or Back in Black, that's like their Tom Sawyer and Spirit of the Radio. It's those two tracks. And Back in Black it's just magical. Absolutely magical. People think this stuff's basic, but what AC/DC do is they take a very minimal palette of a few open chords, but using arrangement and rhythm and drama, they create something that is pure rock and roll, but has a sort of theatrical pomp, which enables them to stand on a stage and play to, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of people. They're a stadium rock band, not some gutsy in a bar rock band, which they could do that as well. AC/DC is one of the greatest bands, and Back in Black is just incredible. Let me put my love into you, babe. That's like one of those double entendres that AC/DC do. They do everything on this album. You Shook Me All Night Long. It's just classic rock albums. Now, I might do a video because when this album came out, which was when I was just getting into music, bought a Highway to Hell, that I think the month I got into rock was the month Bon Scott died. So I was like going in there. We waited for Back in Black to came out and it was incredible. And then I think AC/DC was on the TV and we all saw that. And people in my school were into this band and we would all get together, AC/DC fans. And then this follow-up album came, For Those About to Rock. Now, the title track, For Those About to Rock, is so unbelievable. But For Those About to Rock, we loved it at the time, but then as time went on, it sort of diminished. And after that, AC/DC never really attained the same level as they had earlier on. And it's interesting of why that is. And I think it's to do with this magic that their music has, that isn't quite there. And I mean, maybe there's only so much you can do. Anyway, that's a topic for another video. But yeah, Back in Black, it represents that apex. So at number 7, and this might be a surprise to many here, because I often am very critical of this band, but this album I hold up so high, it's just sublime. And it is a progressive rock album. It is Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. This is an album. It is without doubt a perfect album. It never puts a step wrong. And it never puts a step wrong when what it's trying to do is so unbelievably difficult, and the risks it takes. For example, using all the sort of music concrete and all the sort of found sounds and the sort of the narration that runs through everything, and the fact that songs start up and then they come back in, and the whole movement to this sort of almost like revelatory place of nihilism almost at the end. Right at the peak of the album, you've got things like Great Gig in the Sky, which has got no vocal. It's just some singer that doesn't belong in the band. It's their gimme shelter moment, isn't it? So there's a lot going on this album, and it would have been so easy to put something on which just veers off from the narrative. Now, some people might be shouting, well, I think Money does that. And it does, but Money doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the album. But if we're sort of going through this sort of the damnation of humankind and the sort of 7 deadly sins thing and the evil capitalism and all that stuff that Roger Waters is obsessed with, life and death and all that type of stuff, when it gets to Money, you can almost picture the spinning roulette wheels and, private jets flying about. And what's interesting is that in terms of mainstream culture, the most sort of famous track on that album is Money. And so as an artistic statement to pull that off, it goes beyond. They push the boat out, and there's this one track that doesn't quite fit in. But neither does Great Gig in the Sky, or On the Run. A Dark Side of the Moon is a really, really incredible album. Now, I keep going back to Pink Floyd. I've been listening to Meddle, because Meddle is ruined by 2. Well, the one track it's ruined by isn't that bad, but it's ruined by another track totally. Obscured by Clouds, again, ruined right at the end of the album by one of the most weirdest things ever. I put on Animals again. I quite liked that when I was younger, but putting it on now, I put Dogs on. It's like a whole side of bloody the most boring, does it ever get off the ground? And don't talk to me about The Bloody Wall, right? So for me, Pink Floyd have never been a band that is able to deliver like that. It's too wishy-washy, and there's too much infighting, and they seem to lose focus on so many albums. Dark Side of the Moon's not that. It's just absolutely perfect. So that's what I've got at number 7, is Dark Side of the Moon. In fact, I don't care what anyone says. Pink Floyd's reputation rests on that album. That's why we talk about them. That's why they're multimillionaires, and that's why they're held in reverence by so many people. I have had friends who were fans of like Joy Division and The Cure and all that, and about Oasis. Those types of people, and they say you're into prog. What album should I get? If you say Close to the Edge, they're just going to be like dumbfounded. But you tell them to get Dark Side of the Moon, they always come in the next day going, oh my God, I can't believe it. I had a spiritual awakening. Oh my God, this is what it does to people. Right. Number 6, this is going to be contentious, but I really think this album's near perfect. And it is by Led Zeppelin, the Untitled album, which some people call Untitled, and other people call Led Zepp 4. For me, when I came to do this list, I thought, perfect albums. The first thing I wrote down was Led Zepp 4. Led Zepp 4 is astonishing to me. I have to listen to it around about 4 times a year, every now and then, to sort of clean my ears out almost. And there's another album on the list where I do that. To clean my ears out, I will go and put Led Zepp 4 on, because it's so unutterably incredible all the way through that it sort of resets me of what great music's about, right? There isn't a weak moment on that album for me. Well, there is. There's a tiny weak moment, right? But for many people, the weak moments reside on side 2. There are those who don't like Misty Mountain Hop. I don't know who they are, but I think that is weirder than anything else on the album. Robert's vocal in point. The closest they come to prog, well, now they come to prog on like, Battle of Evermore, State of Heaven. But in terms of sort of odd time signatures and weird and sort of instrumental virtuosity, Four Sticks is pretty incredible. But people don't like Four Sticks. I love it. And the middle section of Four Sticks to me is absolutely sublime. It's one of Led Zeppelin's great moments. The Joni Mitchell rip-off of Going to California, I can't fault it. It's just incredible. For me, as you know, I'm not a fan of rock and roll pastiche. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like when rock bands decide to, play some rock and roll, and it all goes towards Shawaddy Waddy or the Darts or even Mud. There were some British bands in the 70s. I think when bands do this, the Clash do this a little bit. I'm going, what you're just doing a Shawaddy Waddy now, and Led Zeppelin do their Shawaddy Waddy on rock and roll, right? But that drum intro, greatest drum intro. How can I? Because for me, when it kicks in, I like it. It's got loads of chutzpah. John Bonham's done was just brilliant. The intro and then the solo at the end. It's so full of such. It's like, how can I criticise rock and roll? So I'll put that down to me, because that would be my least favourite track on the album. The rest of it is it's just incredible. And even rock and roll, all of it, the guitar solo, there's so many bits I absolutely love. So that's what I've got at number 6, is Led Zepp 4. Now, going through their other albums, it's interesting because Coda's obviously outtakes, Into the Outdoors is greatly flawed for me. House of the Holy, it's got tracks like The Crunge and Jamaica's a bit strange, isn't it? The first album, too many long-winded blues that go on forever. Second album, it's got Moby Dick, and I just could do without that drum solo. And Heartbreaker, I've got to be honest, Heartbreaker's a little bit like, it's a little bit like cliche rock. Led Zeppelin 3 is just too weird. It's incredible. But I think I could do that without that sort of blues pastiche at the end, where Robert sings for the Leslie. Yeah, it's all right, but it's what do you do it for? Physical Graffiti, as I've said, for me, it sort of lags on the second disc, and there's a couple of tracks which I'm going to talk about. Presence, for me, they don't put a foot wrong. I know if I'd have said it, everyone would have gone up the wall. And when I went on the internet, people are saying like T for One is their worst track. T for One, it's incredible. Where's the bad track on Presence? Why don't people like Presence? I need to do a video called Why Don't People Like Presence? Because it's what obviously, as I keep going on about, I'm trying not to go on about it because people think I'm name dropping, but I did play drums for Robert Plant, which, it's more than you lot have done. Unless you're somebody who's played drums for Robert Plant, there's got to be a couple watching it, maybe, I don't know. Well, you have. And I bet you go on about it too, don't you? You're going to go on about it. Anyway, when I played Robert Plant, I can remember having a pork pie and a pint of bitter with him, and I said to him, I think Presence is an incredible album, and he said, yes, I did think that too. I think it's one of our best albums. So the band thought it was really, really good, but people don't seem to like Presence, so it's really weird. I love Presence anyway. It's not going to help, is it, going on about this on an album when you're talking about perfection? Right, at number 5, halfway through now, so these are really getting close to being absolutely perfect, and I'm going to have to really find the little chink, because nothing can be perfect, can it? Nothing can. Because I knew if I said the about 10 most perfect albums, I knew some anal retard would come on and say, Andy, how can you rank the 10 most perfect albums? If they're all perfect, then they should be ranked equally. And I thought they're going to say that, so I'm going to have to put the word nearing, which makes the title less snappy. I'm going to lose views. I'm going to have to lose some views by putting the word nearing. You don't understand how YouTube works, do you? So those of you who like everything done properly, in other words, the progressive rock fans, the ones who are on the spectrum that watch my channel, I know you're there. You know, they're the ones that get really irate when I do make a mistake. I'm talking so fast, you know, I just get my words wrong. And I've probably done it about 3 times already. I do apologise for it, because I know you get really, really upset and you can't help it. And your little fingers twitch like this. You can't going to put a comment up. I need to put a comment up. He said the wrong word. He said Bito and the snowman, and it's Bito and the snow dog. He said Bito. Does he know he said it? I don't think he even knows he said it, because he didn't say anything about it. Carried on. He carried on, he did. Oh, I'm going to have to put something up to let him know. I know he's getting loads of hundreds of comments every day, but I know he reads them all. And when he sees this, he'll be able to atone for his sins. This is the halfway through the video, like I give it's almost like an ad break. This is, I tend to do this when I get to number 5. I go off on a little bit of tangent for those who like that type of stuff, who like a sort of funny voice, those who like me having a good kick at the viewers who watch the channel. You know, why do you do it for, Andy? Well, it's like, you don't understand it. It's like it's like postmodern what I'm doing. What's postmodern? You know, like taking the mickey out of your audience. It's like, you know, that's what postmodernism is. It's like a sort of Brechtian alienation theory. You know, none of the other YouTubers do it. Well, what sort of thing would that be? Well, like talking to yourself. Who would talk to themselves on YouTube? Well, it's just one of the things that I will do is I'll talk to myself. What you mean, like Gollum, in bloody Lord of the Rings, and he goes all like that, and his head's over here, his head's over. Yeah, it's a bit like that. Why are you doing that? Well, it represents a sort of dialectic, doesn't it? It's like good versus evil, or it's chaos versus order. It's like the angels on the shoulder. I'm trying to embody it through sort of, you know, basically turning my head to the side and then talking in exactly the same voice. Is that how you do it, is it? Yeah, that's how I do it. I mean, I don't know how you could do that in any other way. Yeah, well, it seems to work. So why do you do that then? And why do you get the criticise the audience? Well, it's like those audiences out there that enjoy me taking the mickey out of them. That's my audience, that is. Because then what that allows is for me to be absolutely, truly awful. And then I got to get out of jail card, because I have to make a lot of videos, you see. I'm talking to you, aren't I have to make a lot. No, if I put my head over there, don't work, does it? I'm me now. I'm talking to my conscience, aren't I? Jiminy Cricket's over there. I'm getting confused now. If I set that up, then if I go wrong, they will think it's a funny part of the video, when actually I've just gone wrong. And that's a get out of jail card. I think you just told the truth of why you're doing it. Yeah, I know I did, but I felt I should do. But you don't ever tell the truth, do you? No, I'm getting confused with you. Shall I get back on with the video? Because that was 2 minutes of nonsense, that was. That was for those of you who like that type of stuff. But there was a sort of, there was a deep truth there, wasn't there? A deep truth of how truth lies in artifice. It lies in lies. That's the profound moments of the video. How can an album be perfect when perfection, artistic perfection, is a lie? Literally. It's artifice. It has to have that thing that's wrong in it to be truly great. That's why I'm so much better than all the other YouTubers. It's my arrogance and big-headedness and my inability to get through a video without going wrong. It's that. The dichotomy of those two things coming together. And that's what draws you in. And you're sat there watching going, nobody else does this. Only Andy would do this halfway through this video. He's risking his viewers, you know. He's done it all the way through. He's trying to do a video that it'll have a clickbaity bloody title. It'll have a clickbaity thumbnail. And then what's he done? He's done the video. He's done it actually quite well. He didn't do that many jokes when he's talking about the albums, but this one's a weird one because he started off alienating the audience, and now he's alienating them again. Why would he do that on a video about perfection? What point is he trying to make about perfection? He can't be making. He's not that clever, is he? I don't think he is that clever. Nah, he can't be that clever because he keeps making mistakes. I mean, if you can't get through YouTube without going wrong, you know, I mean, that's the one thing with Andy's videos, that you could never call them perfect, could you? They're imperfect. Yes, but they're brilliant in their imperfection. That's the point. That's the point. That's why you're here. So at number 5, you just nicked Stuart Lee's bloody... You nicked what he does. Yeah, but he nicked it off that Chris Chippington. He's the real comedy genius. He's like the Andy Kaufman of Britain. Chris Chippington, and he had proper ethics. You know, he set out to be anti-comedy. And then when he stopped being anti-comedy and everyone just started to laugh because they liked the anti-comedy, what did he do? He gave it all in. You know, what did he be? He became a bloody truck driver or something, didn't he, Chris Chippington? What are you talking about Chris Chippington on this video for? What's this all about? There's the deep meaning there. There must be a deep esoteric meaning here. I mean, Andy's gone 5 minutes down the middle of this video and people have been switching off. I'll bet you he's hoping that they're going to hold on to find out what's number one. What's the most perfect album ever made? You want to know what's Andy going to say is perfect? But does it really matter what he says? Yeah, it does. I want to know. I want to know to see if it lines up with my idea of perfection. If my idea lines up with perfection, that means me and Andy have got empathy. Let me like this. That's me. That's Andy, and we've matched up, and I feel good about myself. But if I don't agree with it, then I will think he's an idiot, which he most obviously is if you watch this video. You see. Empathy, idiot. Empathy, idiot. There's always a dialectic going on in absolutely everything. You can't have perfection. The only way you can have perfection, you have to have that. You have to have that smidge. It's like when you buy a new car. You know you're going to scratch it, and once you scratch it, it won't be perfect. So anybody who has got a moral idea of how the world works deliberately scratches their car. They put that little scratch in, so they're in control of it, because then they become the creator and they're not being bossed around by fate. At number 5, I have by Miles Davis, Kind of Blue. Yeah. You know, the biggest selling jazz album of all time. It's got So What. Everyone likes that tune. It's all like very relaxing. The sort of middle classes can buy that album and feel like they're educated because they bought an album which is actually quite easy to listen to. But it's a heavy jazz album. It's got Cannonball Adderley, John Coltrane, Bill Evans and Miles Davis on. So you get all that for your money. Your friends can come around and go, yes, what are we having to do? We could have salmon. You know, are we having prawn cocktails as a starter? No, we only had those in the 70s. I have no idea what posh people would eat at a meal. You fancy a little bit of music in the background? Yes, I would. What have you got on? I've got a bit of Miles Davis. Oh, it's very, very good. It's very good. Which one have you got? Kind of Blue. Yes. Oh, it's very good. Very good. I mean, it's a nice, quiet album. I don't like when that John Coltrane starts doing all the screaming stuff. I mean, how can you eat a prawn cocktail when you've got all that screaming going on in the background? But with Kind of Blue, it's a very accessible album. And they don't put a foot wrong. They're every single Freddie Freeloader, Blue and Green, they're all masterpieces. Jazz standards, every single one of them. They don't put a foot wrong. The soloing is incredible. Cannonball Adderley acts as a sort of counterweight coming out of the bebop school against John Coltrane's post-bebop sheet of sounds approach. And it's very interesting that, but it's all pulled down by the sort of lyrical impressionist classicism of Bill Evans, which brings a sort of romanticism to Miles Davis, which you don't have. And of course, Miles Davis sat in the middle of it all. He's sat in the middle of it all, isn't he? Like the leader, like the preacher, the vicar in the middle of the ceremony, and who's holding it all together? The incredible, reliable but quiet rhythm section of Mr. Paul Chambers, Mr. PC, as Coltrane called him, and of course Jimmy Cobb, who is of course named after the Cobb, which is a type of sandwich that they have in the UK. Which many people are now using the word bap instead of cob. And it's not a good thing. No. I think we need to go back for the cob. I always say to my butler, can I have a cheese cob, please? And he goes, yes, sir, I'll get you a cheese cob right now. And he goes, very good. I mean, Jimmy Bap on drums. Who wants to have that? I've spoken about Kind of Blue quite a bit, so I did that instead. I hope that's all right. I'm going to move on. And I've spoken about loads about this one as well. At number 4, above Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, the most perfect prog album of all time, Close to the Edge. God, how many times have I spoken about Close to the Edge? I don't want to talk about this one. Go back and look up Andy's best prog albums. I've probably done that list about 3 times now. And every single time, Close to the Edge will be number 1. Isn't it brilliant? You see the cover. It's not all outlandish castles in the sky and strange rocks floating in a sort of desert of progressive, wonder. It's just that green. And you know that when Roger Dean made that green was hard to make. He's got airbrushing going on or something. It's bloody, because it's subtly shifted. And then the beauty, and then you open it up and you have that great, just the cover itself, because I've spoken about it. And from the very first, I mean, what have you got with Close to the Edge? You've got the track Close to the Edge, greatest prog epic of all time. Then you've got two other prog epics, and You and I, one of the greatest prog epics of all time, Siberian Heart True. So where's the weak link with this album? Where's the weak link? The only weak link I can say with Close to the Edge, I think musically it goes on. Some people might not like you know, Rick, what's he called? Rick Wakeman's massive organ. You know, the big organ that appears in the middle of Close to the Edge. But I love it. I love it. And I can picture Rick Wakeman on a massive organ. He's in some cathedral somewhere. I don't want to picture my musicians in a recording studio. I mean, we've had too many documentaries about Close to the Edge. We know all about it now. You know, they cut it all up. Eddie Offord's cutting it all up, sticking it on the wall. And then the cleaner comes along and picks it up and sticks it in the bin. And they have to gut it and clean it all. I don't want to know that. You know, because I tell you why I don't want to know that. Because the bloody Achilles heel with Close to the Edge is the production. I mean, they've remastered it. It sounds pretty good now, but I don't know. I always thought it was a little bit muffly. I mean, if you're having to get stuff out the bin, I mean, how many classic albums did you have to get out the bin? But I don't want to picture that. I want to picture Rick Wakeman in a cape in a cathedral playing the organ. That's what I want on an album. I don't want the bloody Ramones walking around in leather jackets that are too tight for them with their stupid haircuts. Don't want that. I'm not interested in punk visceralness. That's not what floats my boat. Huge organs float my boat. Right. This one's weird. It's like I'm doing a proper video and a comedy video at the same time. And I'm utilising stuff I usually pick on stuff I don't really like that much to get the comedy. There's no comedy in what I've got at number 3. Not one at all. Not one bit of comedy am I going to be able to elicit from the album I've got at number 3. But it's bloody incredible. One of the greatest jazz albums ever made. It is Live at the Village Vanguard or Sunday at the Village Vanguard or whatever it is by Bill Evans. Greatest jazz album ever made. Bill Evans. Just a monster. He a virtuoso, and he doesn't have to show it. I mean, this guy, if you listen to his first album was a solo album. He's playing like bloody off the charts. He's a classical virtuoso pianist. But by this point, he's brought that all down into this really tight and controlled emotional. This is the highest music's Bill Evans. And the way he's playing is he's using sort of, as I said when I was joking about him, impressionist sort of harmonic language to really defocus the root, the root of which you're improvising on. This is why this album's avant-garde. It's avant-garde in a way that free jazz by Ornette Coleman's avant-garde or Ascension by Coltrane or Albert Ayler. But what he does is he detaches the fundamental aspects of jazz, but retains the beauty of the jazz standard. He doesn't walk away from the jazz standard because he sees it as a vehicle for showing great emotional content. And in Paul Motion and Scott LaFaro, he has these two players that are able to provide that rootlessness, but logical counterpoint as well. You see what I'm doing? I'm doing some proper stuff. And I'm doing my proper thing and I'm doing the silliness all at the same time. It's bloody brilliant. On a video where the whole overall theme has been the dialectic and how these two things exist at once, which, when you think about it, if you really have to have two things to create a sublime whole, which are sort of fighting each other almost, what does perfection? Perfection is one of the realms. So the sublime is the highest artistic achievement, not perfection. And so by that quotient, there's got to be something in this, on all of these albums that make them perfect. And what it is emotionalism, but it's emotionalism captured without any point that destroys that. Keith Jarrett once said, this is what music is. He said, it's music arranges energy levels in a way that does not kill them. So, as much as I am doing the 10 perfect albums, I know what's going on. I don't even know I'm doing it. I don't know why. But I'm dealing with the idea of perfection. Scott LaFaro was a bass player of such incredible ability that when he came in, he took bass play and he pushed it further out. They'd been incredible. I mean, Paul Chambers is an incredible bass player. Ray Brown, they're virtuoso bass players. But they were bass players. You'd had people like Sam Stewart doing that. Have you ever heard Sam Stewart? Incredible. He does this sort of... he scats and plays with the bass. He's incredible. But even then, he's still in the range of the bass. Scott LaFaro, he's untethered. And so when Bill Evans is soloing, it's almost like Scott LaFaro is soloing along with him. He's equal in this jazz trio. And it's groundbreaking. It's the guy that Jaco Pastorius listened to. It's the guy that you know, Jaco was listening to all these soul bass players and stuff, but the thing Jaco does on electric bass, he got from Scott LaFaro. Now, Scott LaFaro, after he made this album, you know, this was recorded live, so it's incredible. It's beautifully recorded. And you can hear the people sort of walking around the background and chatting a little bit. They don't realise they're in the presence of the greatest album in history being made. And then about 2 weeks later, had a car crash and died. And so we get this little... It's made rarer. There's a rarity to this. There's only certain albums we can get Scott LaFaro, and there's even less albums when he's doing this thing. And there's only... And this isn't the only album, because he also does it in One Waltz to Debbie as well, which was recorded on the same gig. But this is because Scott LaFaro had died, the record company decided to push forward all the Scott LaFaro solo-y parts from that gig, and then the more sort of ballady, tuney ones were left for Waltz for Debbie. And so focusing on Scott LaFaro, I actually think creates a homogeneous whole to this album, which is why it's perceived as being perfect. In another context, perhaps they would have put a few ballads on, and it would have been a wider listening experience. Because for me, that is one of the things that is the enemy to the perfect album. It's trying to put stuff on there, where you go, oh, this is it. I didn't expect this. I'm not sure about it, but it's quite interesting. That aspect seems to go against this sort of perfect whole where everything is just so homogenous. And what that thing I'm describing is like, it's like being in the sweet shop. It's having choice and having being able to pick things and go, oh, not sure I like that, but I'm enjoying the journey. It's the visceral. You know, I could get a sine wave and do a whole album for 40 minutes, which is just one sine wave. And in true terms, that would be perfection. That is actually perfect. But when we go to the realm of perfection, we don't have art, because art is the marriage. It is as Keith Jarrett said, it's a subtle marriage made by an artist between perfectionism and hedonism. And as I put my hands up here, actually, if you look at your hands, if you go and look at your hands now, these hands, your hands themselves represent, they're like in front of you as a representation of perfectionism and hedonism, or night and day, or left and right, okay? And left and right has become embodied into this dialectic. And when you look at your hands, you see that they are not the same. They are the equal but opposite of each other. And the sublime can be seen as that. And do you remember that thing when we were kids and they'd go, I can't remember it. It's like, here's a so, here's the steeple, open up the church, and they do all the, I can't do it. And then they go, and here's the people. There's the people. See, there's us all together, cradled in the hand of perfectionism and emotionalism. And that's what art does. It's about community. It's about love. Now, where have I stolen this from? I don't get anything original. This is from my Roland Vasquez interview. Check out my Roland Vasquez. Nobody watched it, but he was talking about the sublime. He was talking about the sublime, and the reason why that interview is one of my favourite interviews I've ever done. We're talking about very serious, heavy subjects, and we're also laughing our heads off all the way through. And again, we represent. This is perfection. That's perfection. This isn't perfection. It's greater. That's what you've got from this video. Those of you who are hungry for some thoughts, what have I got at number 2? It's my favourite album of all time. Visions of the Emerald Beyond. by the Mahavishnu Orchestra. It's near perfect to me. So where's the unperfect bit, Andy? Where's the unperfect? Well, I've got to be honest, when I had my copy growing up, the whole time I was into that album, when I bought that album, which I got from Reddington's Rare Records in Birmingham, and I bought it around about 1985, 86, took it home, and I could not believe it. But in the violin solo, in the second part of Eternity's Breath, where Jean-Luc Ponty goes, as he slides up with that thing, my album had a fault in it. It had a fault, and it jumped. It jumped every single time. And I became so obsessed with this jump. I was thinking, what's in there that I'm missing? Am I missing something? I haven't got a perfect copy. Right? I haven't got a perfect copy. What? And eventually, also, I bought it, cost a ton of money, but the 80s import version that I got was not a gatefold. Right? I didn't even know it was not a gatefold. It came with this blue piece of paper that they'd put all the stuff on the inside, because on the original it was a gatefold. And when you opened it up, that sort of big, diamond shape, it had all the bit, and I hadn't got that. And then when I found out that existed as well, I had to go search out and get a proper copy, which I did, and I got my perfect copy. And I put it on, and I waited for that violin solo. And when it got to that violin solo, and it didn't jump, it wasn't quite as good. Because that little crack in that album, for me, contained infinity, because I love this album and listen to it every day, but I never knew what was in there. And while that still existed, it could have been anything, and nothing could have lived up to what I imagined in that second could have existed in that one groove that it jumped over. This is the aspect of perfectionism, right? This is the aspect of it. That's another interesting fact, is that for the flawlessness of art can create a space where we put in perfection ourselves. We imagine. There needs to be a space in there where you can imagine your heart's desire almost. In terms of the album, is there any tracks I don't like on that album? Nope. Love them all. Absolutely love them all. Anything go on for too long? Not really, no. I just can't think. That's why it's at number 2. You know why? Well, I'll tell you what's at number 1 now. It's A Love Supreme by John Coltrane. The Visions of the Emerald Beyond might be pretty perfect. It's just not quite as perfect as A Love Supreme. A Love Supreme is like a vision embodied in album form. Coltrane said it just came to him, the whole idea for the whole album. And it sits there, all balanced. See, this is what Visions of the Emerald Beyond hasn't got. It's like a story. Visions of the Emerald Beyond starts off in an incredible place and then takes you on this great long journey, and then in the end you sort of have to return to Earth, and in return to Earth it's almost like you ascend to the heavens. That's the sort of structure of Visions of the Emerald Beyond. Coltrane, this is just perfection. 4 parts. 2 parts on side 1, 2 parts on side 2. And what you have on here for me is the Trinity. And the Trinity represents antithesis, thesis, synthesis, the triangle, the law of 3. Right? This stuff. This is, I'm going to tell you something about my channel now, because in doing a video about perfection, I am really grappling with the central idea of this channel. Something that I noticed being obsessed with art and music and spending my whole life being involved in it, that there is this thing that seems to be in the arts, right? You sort of have science and you have religion. They're opposing each other. I believe that art wraps around the whole of it. I believe that metaphysics, I believe that questions about the universe are actually contained within art. I think to really understand the world, we have to realise that science is just a viewpoint. It's a way of trying to fool yourself that you are objective, to try and get some sort of objective truth. Science is about getting objective truth, but there's a thing called subjective truth. The postmodernists in the 20th century have destroyed this with their phenomenological ideas that tries to make a subjective truth equal to objective truth, but they're not. They're actually incompatible. If you understand the world, these two things are incompatible. There's only one realm where you can make these compatible, and that is within the arts. And that can be embodied in the Holy Trinity or the Law of Three or Thesis. It's all the way through in absolutely every area. You will see this existing. And so Coltrane makes this album, but he doesn't have three on there. The Law of Three, Close to the Edge does. But actually, the first track is acknowledgement, pursuance, resolution. Those first three, acknowledgement, pursuance, resolution, that is the Law of Three. And the last track, Psalm, is the prayer that comes out of the realization of these things. Now, I'm not an overtly religious person, believe me. I am not. But I think when we deal with art, we naturally will go towards these areas in terms of what art does. But art also represents the profane. So when I was driving over here, I was listening to a whole bunch of rap and hip hop. And I was like, oh God, do people call this music? Just happened to come on. It was on bloody Radio 4. So playing some track, Kanye West track. It was bloody awful. Just him boasting, and they were all saying it was a great work of art. It was on Desert Island Discs, and I thought, it's not a great work of art, it's just someone boasting. A really rubbish bloody loop, and then he starts screaming his head off at the end. It's like the Emperor's New Clothes. It's like the antithesis, but the thing is, music does contain that. You only have to go back to those sort of dirty blues in the 1920s and 30s to realise that popular music has this embodied in it. You only have to go back to minstrelsy as well. So there's which is basically what rock music is. It's minstrelsy. Those are the things that nobody wants to talk about. I try and talk about them on this channel. Now, sometimes I get in trouble for it, but I also try and talk about the spiritual. And on this video, it's been odd because I promise you, I didn't plan to do this, but I have skirted back and forth between these two areas that I know my channel have. Right? The silly comedy, the acting stupid, the funny voices, and then talking about the beauty of music and what it does and what it represents and all the higher stuff. And I've tried to interweave these together. So I'm hoping this could well be my near perfect video where I do the lot. Is that what I've done? I'm sat dead center. Look at the lighting. We've got the natural light. We've got the artificial light. It's all here, embodied in esoteric forms. I'm done. Got to the end of the video, that's done. You enjoy that one? I think I did all right. I did all right today. It's all right. We're done. This video was sponsored by British company Drums and Dream Cymbals. They are my choice and they are beautiful. You can see them there. Let's bring the light a little bit closer to them so you can see them glow. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? That's my drum kit. Right? This bit's just at the end of the video. You can switch off now if you're not interested. I'll tell you what I'm doing here. I play the drums all my life. I play my drums. I've got my drums on here. I'm endorsed by these companies. I wonder whether these companies really understand the possibilities of musicians who have channels like this rather than playing out in bands. That is something that I have been thinking about quite a bit. And I think British Drum Company, which I have sort of messaged them quite a few times recently saying, like, well, what do you want to do? And I don't want anything for it. I love the drums. I love playing them. I want to come and champion them on the channel. But I don't know if they're quite getting it. And I've done it quite a few times. So I've done the cheeky thing here that on this video at the end, I have mentioned it. So if any of you are fans of British Drum Company, Dream Cymbals, they do engage with me a lot more. They do. But British Drum Company at the moment, I don't think they're quite aware that I have gone from being a progressive rock drummer, which is why I got endorsements in the first place, and I used to do drum clinics, to now having this place, you know, this position on my channel. So, look at that beauty. So please, anybody who's had any contact with the British Drum Company can you say Andy was talking about your drum kit on his channel and saying it's absolutely, this is like the Rolls Royce of drum kits. It's incredible, and I want to talk about them. I want to tell everybody how wonderful they are. So what we're going to do, I'm going to put this down here. What's Andy doing now? I'll tell you what I'm doing. That when I finished the video, I realised that this sort of beautiful arrangement that I had of the camera and the lighting, which I spent a lot of time doing, is the antithesis of somebody doing the worst thing you could do on YouTube, and is actually trying to do a YouTube video where you are, doing talking. I mean, it's all gone wrong now, isn't it? But you're all still here watching, aren't you? I'm going to finish with a bit of drumming. I have got a bad hand though, so you've got to, it won't be anything flashy. It'll just be a bit of drumming. So what are you about to hear now is this incredible drum kit on the camera, recorded naturally, okay? And before I go, please put a like on the video if you did like it. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. I'm not one of these people who bores you with asking for this all at the beginning of the video. I bore you with other stuff that is even worse. If you want to support me, I've got a Patreon. The links are down below to that. You can become a free member or paid member. I have a Substack. The link is down to that. I have a Bandcamp. You can become subscribed to that. Loads of ways of supporting me. I've got a PayPal tip jar. Let's get the lighting a little bit better, shall we? I've got a PayPal tip jar. You can put a donation to that if you enjoyed this video. And I also have got a button on this. So thanks for watching. I'll do a little bit of drumming and then that will be the out. Right, I am as cold. I'm literally cold. I got a bad hand and I haven't played. Just giving him excuses. You say this, just never giving excuses. You don't give excuses. Just play. Oh, I'll just play then. A bright mistake. God, that was a weird video, wasn't it? Loads of things happened in that. Bloody hell. I'll go home. Bloody cold, isn't it? Get out of here, get back home, have a nice cup of tea. Make sure you've got all the stuff off, no heaters on, haven't you? Look, it's dark now. Get my computer. When we're going to do my cup, I need to wash that out, don't I, before I go. Right, what else? Coat. Let's get the old coat on. Let's get back home, it's Sunday afternoon. Might get myself a nice little snack on the way home. Scotch egg perhaps. Babe, I've got a pork pie in the fridge, haven't I? I've got pork pie. Alright. Oh, I forgot to switch this bloody off, didn't I?
break my bones. Come a little closer. Come a little closer. I can tell you how. Come a little closer. I can tell you how. I can tell you how. Come a little closer. I can tell you how. Something to say.